Uh, and yes,
You
I
might want to,
echo what you're
you might be
saying.
more comfortable sitting down rather
You
than
won't
have
be
to
able
stand
to
up for
see
the
me over
presentation.
the
We can sit.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, if you don't mind that.
Oh, fine.
It's up to you.
Yeah, please.
Wherever you want
This
to.
way I
feel
can
free.
invite
It's
my
it's your
colleagues to
choice.
join me.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Teresa.
I'll sit here so I can see Grady. Done. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Good evening. I want to echo what Grady was just saying. This is not a typical year for the way we do budget. It's not typical process for us. And I thought I was retired and things get easier.
Me too.
It's been a challenge. And as Grady said, we started a little late in the game and we scrambled, and I want to thank my staff and pulling together. Both Mitzi and Bridget helped me tremendously all throughout the process to bring you this information in such a short time. And if I may, I want to start by saying you are fiscally solvent. You are on solid grounds to proceed with the recommendation from the staff on this evening's CIP. You do have, like I say, you're fiscally solvent and you do have plenty of money to cover all this. It's not typical to cover everything out of general fund. Usually we resort, even if you have the money, we resort to other financing sources, such as selling bonds or getting lease purchase going, and other means of funding for many of these major projects. But you do have one major funding here, over $13 million funded by WIFA, the Water Infrastructure Financing Authority. So that's a good thing to start with. And if I may, I want to start with the department. So this is starting with the water department because Sean is going to join us remotely, I believe. Is he on? Okay, so
Mayor and council, if you don't mind, we had thought that Sean was going to be Zooming with us because he has family from out of the country visiting him. So his family visit was scheduled before this, so I thought he was going to pop in. So let's go ahead and advance to the general fund departments, and then we'll come back when he arrives.
that's good. Thank you. And so this is a high level summary of all the capital improvement projects in this document, and I had it
Are we on page
by
16 now,
department.
Grady?
Like we're on.
Or 12?
We're on the page that says Public Works Streets Grants. So we're going to start off with Public Works.
So right here, this.
Thank you for asking.
And I apologize, I don't have the pages numbered. And so it was gonna start with water, and following that, we're gonna go with public works, streets and grants. And while I pull up the summary sheet, I'd like to invite my colleagues to join me to speak on each project and answer any questions you might have. At this time, I'd like to invite Hal to join me here. Thank you, Hal.
We're on page 13 of the handout. Is that the right one? Or I'm on?
He has.
Projects by
Yeah.
funding source.
Yeah, me too. It's page 13. But I don't understand why we didn't start with 12, which is the general fund and the administration of fleet management.
Well, we're basing it on what they have on the presentation. I'm sorry, I was trying to keep to the presentation order. I apologize, but
And the presentation is by departments, and my apologies, I didn't explain that up front. So by departments, we have all funding sources that would support the projects for
Right.
that particular department. So I started with a summary of the projects for that particular department. And then following the projects, you'll see the funding source that will support each of these projects. For public works, streets, we have about $9.4 million funded out of general fund and 2 million, a little over $2 million funded out of HERF. And I have Hal also here to speak on each individual project. And so on each individual projects is where you see all the details in the handout that you have in the public handout.
I'm on page 13 with all this. It's roughly corresponds. to what we have in
Roughly,
the screen
okay,
here.
okay.
So is
So-
it page 13 of
Yeah.
126?
Well,
Nine of
right.
122?
It's the same thing, see?
Same thing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Looks
we're
like
there.
The layout is a little different.
Yeah.
13
Okay.
here and then.
Are you gonna go by exception then if somebody has a question that on a project?
So we're going to go on a summary basis over everything. And then if you have concerns or issues or clarification questions, by all means, stop us as we're doing it. So we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Hal to go through the listing and then just does he have the summary of everything he needs
That's
to
right.
go over?
Yes.
So why don't you share that with him?
Okay. The projects that we'll discuss today are pretty much our pavement management plan. There are only 3 projects that are not part of the pavement management plan that we've laid out and are progressing. Those would be, and let's go with those would be the construction of Tally Ho in Tandem, which we are, excuse me, which we are supposedly getting the final designs the end of this week. We will take a look at them, and if they're ready to go, we'll get them out on the street and get them ready for construction. The other ones would be the paving of 53rd Street between Barbie and Olison. That area is a pretty heavy commercial area that we're trying to pave and so that we can redirect the fire department and emergency services for the hospital to there and get them off of 52nd Street as a route so that the 52nd Street people can then go through the neighborhood traffic calming policy. And then the third one would be the 3rd Street is one that was brought to us by petition by the neighbors of Morningstar and 54th Street, where we had money in the budget, proposed budget for chip sealing of unpaved roads. And we had a gentleman who came in. I said, well, we don't have Morningstar as a project or 54th Street as a project. And so we tasked him with going out and collecting signatures from the ownership, from the property owners on 54th and Morningstar to basically come in and chip seal the road, put a hard surface on it. And I said, if you get enough signatures, and I wanted at least 75% of the property owners, well, he got all but one property owner to sign this petition, which for Cave Creek, I found to be incredibly amazing to get that many people to agree on something.
Well, that may or may not be the case from what we've heard. Dusty?
So,
Okay,
So-
please.
no, so it's kind of an amazing journey from having a heart attack over whether or not we're gonna put the ground up asphalt on there as a base material to all of a sudden, hey, we want it paved. And that's, so I credit you with that, Hal, having your guys go out there and lay that base material, that got them all thinking that, it might be nice to have a paved roadway.
Yeah, so I found it really amazing. That project will have 3 drainage crossings that we'll have to do protection against the edge so we don't lose the chip seal material. But at the same time, that's a project that has now advanced from just chip sealing of unnamed roads to an actual project. And should the council decide that they want to do it,
I do have a question. None of those three washes has to go through the Army Corps of Engineers, does it?
no, the way they are is that because they are, because we're going to go at elevation of the road, and all we're doing, we're still going to take the water over. We're not going to channelize or change. We have to get a floodplain use permit through the Flood Control District of Maricopa County. That will be a requirement of it. But usually if it's an at-grade crossing, those permits are fairly easy to get.
I think there's already an at-grade crossing at one of them,
There are at-grade crossings of all of them,
all three of them.
all
Okay.
three of them, from the FEMA, according to the FEMA map. And having driven it, there are no, if they're culvert, they're nuisance water culverts. They're not culverts that will take the brunt, but it's not like we're putting culverts or bridges or anything else on that road. The water would still come over the road. What we want to do is, since it's going to be paved, is we want to put in what's called a ford section, so that the water will go over the road and not try and make its way underneath the pavement and lift the pavement, or the chip seal material in this case. So those are the three, yes. Sorry.
I'm interrupting you. The neighbors that signed, was there a point at which they all got together or just?
No, we actually have a petition that was signed
petition?
for each of the individual lots. That it was, the request was to, the request was actually to take the funds allocated for paving of unpaved roads and promote it to promote it for the chip sealing of 54th Street and Morningstar.
This-
So it's specific, it was a specific petition, and it outlined each parcel and who signed for that parcel, and there was only one that did
Right,
not.
so they didn't necessarily get together as a group.
No.
There's just a petition.
No, it was a
54th Street. Now I know, is that at the west end of Morningstar? So that
yes.
old stage is down there, no?
Old Stage is the west end.
Right,
54th Street is about mid-block.
not Mendar.
It's
Okay.
on the center of the hill.
Yeah,
It's
Thank
on
you.
it
the
goes
center
up
of
to-
that ridge line,
Mhm.
and they have a problem all the time with things washing out there, the roadway.
yeah.
They're the ones that really were the impetus of this.
Right, and and when we did the GSA out there, we did come in and we did drainage improvements along the side so that it wouldn't cross the road and wash out the road. We've had several near washouts on 54th Street. There's there's I believe a 60-inch culvert that goes underneath that road. And there was one time we went out there and about half that culvert was exposed. You could see the culvert very clearly, and it was in good shape. But you shouldn't be looking down at the culvert and see the culvert extending out through the exposed piece of roadway. So
I have a
Is
question.
is that a through street?
54th is not a through street.
How are we gonna get our money back from 54th Street when they develop those properties? If we, am I on the wrong street? That's that dirt road at the end, right next to the hospital?
No,
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 50,
No.
this is up.
no, this is north. This is just, it tees into Morningstar.
Okay.
So it's, they were some of the impetus, originally would not allow improvement of Morningstar 25 years ago.
Well, you mentioned
Yeah.
my question. The next one is the pedestrian safety. We're gonna have all three of those crossings in this year, if I heard you right last meeting.
Correct. We are we should be bringing that to council in May for the purchase of the crossing equipment.
Okay.
And so then we're just waiting to find out how long it will take to a total cost. And so hopefully we'll have those.
We're gonna have to speed up here. We're 20 minutes in and we're on the first, on the very
Okay.
first item, the first
Right.
page. So let's speed up here if we can.
Certainly. But those are the new projects that we have. The other ones are simply pavement management that are mill and pave or going to be slurry seal. So we really, it's pretty much continuing his business as usual. We only have one other question, which is that if the council decides they want to accelerate the pavement management plan, do we move right now in for fiscal year 26, we have the update to the pavement management plan to identify the projects. Do we want to accelerate that to fiscal year 25? It's about a $70,000 study. Do we want to move it up a year and get it done this year so that we have more projects to identify so we can fill out the projects for the next
What,
5
what
years?
what do you need to get that program on this next year's CIP?
Well, that's what I do need
If,
that.
if that's what you need, that's what we ought to recommend.
Right.
That's what he's asking.
Yeah.
That's
See
what
if
I'm
there's
asking.
consensus for us to do
Because
that.
we want to continue to upgrade the roads
Right.
in town. And this is on a 2-year catch-up cycle?
It was on a 3-year catch-up cycle.
What we see today is a 3-year catch-up cycle?
No, what you have is 2 more years. We did the catch-up cycle this year where we had about 1.2 to 1.3 million dollars in projects versus our 400,000. And then next year will be about the same amount, 1.4 million dollars in pavement projects.
Well, it
there-
sounds like there's consensus to move forward with
Okay.
that for next year. So
Then
we'll
I'll-
make sure that we include that pavement management study for next year.
Yeah, we'll move it up from 26 to 25. Any other questions that you have on roads, streets, or that I might be able to answer for you? Okay,
Seeing none?
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hal.
Let's hear that. Oh, he's on Zoom? Okay.
I believe Sean is about ready to join us and just to reiterate, this is the 5-year plan, starting with 24-25 budget year that we're working on, and all the way up to 28-29. Again, this is in the order of departments and then funding source, starting with Cave Creek water system. We have Sean on Zoom. I think he's gonna go over his projects with Cave Creek.
What page are we on?
Could you tell us what page we're on in the book?
In the book, I wish I brought my laptop. with me, but, I just have- yeah, go ahead.
10 of 126 or
14.
6 of 120.
My apologies, I just brought the PowerPoint.
Okay. all right.
So Sean, are you on?
I am. Can you guys see me and hear me?
We can hear you, but we're not seeing you. You know, it might be harder, but it looks like everyone's looking at their books anyway, so it probably doesn't matter if they see the PowerPoint from
Right.
what I'm seeing.
Okay. Well, sorry, Mayor and Council, I couldn't be there in person. I already had some family in town, but I definitely want to talk to you about our capital program that we have planned for the 3 enterprise funds and get your feedback. We're still focused on rehabilitation of the existing utility systems, the wastewater system, Cape Creek Water and Desert Hills Water. And as we wrap up the master plan, next year we'll plan to present some new projects to you. And we'll look forward to seeing how those can fit into the capital program. We have identified some new scopes. Since we haven't finished the master plan, this is partly a carryover from the last 5-year capital improvement program, but I expect to present some new projects to you next year. So starting, I think the first slide I saw up there was the wastewater system. So starting there, again, the first 2 projects are the manhole rehabilitation and collection system repairs. That's the repair and maintenance of the existing collection system that the town has. We spent a couple of years doing some assessment work, mapping it out. And what we found is,
Interrupt you. Can you hear me? This is Elias. I think the council is on page 11 of 126, starting with Cave Creek water system.
No, he was fine. He
You,
was fine.
oh,
I
I'm
saw
sorry.
wastewater pop up there, so I started talking wastewater. So,
Keep going.
yeah. If you guys, so it is the wastewater list that you're looking at, Mayor and Council? Sorry, I'm not seeing that, but that's what popped up on my screen just now. So, Again, the manholes, we just have a number of manholes in the system that there's deterioration, largely in the bottom channels that we need to get into, and then some other repair work. We just need to be diligent about and keep going with that. And we have found repairs in the collection system. The large pot of money you see at sort of the first year, because we've identified 2 large projects that we need to work on, where we have ductile iron sections of pipe that we need to get repaired. One's actually on the east side of Cape Creek Road by Rancho Manana Boulevard. The other one is actually in Rancho Manana Boulevard. So we're hopeful we can get both of those done this next year. And then it's just a series we have ongoing. Every time we look at the system, we find something that we need to work on to repair, or we've had pipe settlements or other things happen in the system that we just need to be proactive about that. The next project is something we started it this year, which was a recharge plan for the wastewater treatment plant. And that's tied into the town's deliveries. Currently, the only place that the town can deliver effluent is to the Rancho Manana Golf Course. We do have a lease with the golf course, provide them effluent, unless we can make up the difference and if we can send that water somewhere else. Right now, we do have a waste in that system that's being caused by us not being able to place that effluent or the backwash water from the water treatment plant somewhere else. So out of the master planning exercises, we've identified a couple projects, and the most viable one we think is actually making a connection to the city of Phoenix, to the Dove Valley Golf Course. I think it's Dove Valley Ranch, directly south of the Water Ranch. Phoenix actually feeds that through their reclaim system. So our thought would be the money in next year would be really to do the study and to start or get design mostly completed on that, and really identify what that project might look like. We're envisioning a pipeline that will go south of Carefree Highway, maybe not tying into the city of Phoenix's reclaim system, but given its ability to send water to their lakes. They actually have irrigation lakes much larger than Rancho Manana's. We think that working with Phoenix is a good opportunity for the town. Right now, we're about 50 to 75 acre feet a year are being wasted over that system. So this would be a solution that would give the town another opportunity, and we can partner with Phoenix. And we've had some good preliminary conversations with them, but this would allow us to continue that work. We put some money in the wastewater treatment plant assessment and improvements. It seems like every year, council's probably aware that we've had some large improvements out there, some large equipment failures. A few years ago, we had the equipment in the Headworks building go out, and we had to move things around to start those projects, and then we put them in the CIP. As the plant ages, we realize there's going to be large equipment repairs every year that we need to budget for, and it makes sense to put that in there. We're going to try and get more of a full assessment done, have someone help us look at life cycle costs and all the different equipment, and then come back with maybe a more line item project list for you. But that was what that goal, that $50,000 a year, was really to allow us to do that. I'm sorry, I seen the list is showing up a little bit different than I'm in the CIP book that I have. So I'll go back and catch the project I haven't spoken about. So I apologize, I jumped ahead a little bit because I was looking at a different list. But that's what the wastewater treatment plant assessment and improvements is. We typically have large equipment failures out there, and we're scrambling to try and pay for it with operational funds within the year that they occur, or try to wait out till we can put it in the capital program. So we thought it was very prudent to put that money in there.
Hey, Sean,
Yeah.
you, just a moment, we're trying
We're
to,
going into too much detail. I think we need to look at, if somebody has questions on
yeah,
on a
so,
project, because through many times.
right. We're gonna just kind of keep ourselves going through a high level, Sean. So,
Okay.
the things that I think would be good is for the council to look at the wastewater. You've gone through most of what I would call the high level or the projects that they're familiar with. So let's start off with any of the projects that are listed. Does the council have any questions or any clarification? Yes, Councilmember Rhodes.
The Rancho Manana lift station, I'm assuming we're going to replace that.
So Sean.
Yeah, so Rancho Manana, we have struggled with that site. We've vastly improved it in the last few years. We're changing out the pumps and everything, and this is the money to set aside to do a full replacement. When we did the wastewater assessment, they came back and said that it could be up to a $2.5 million project. We're hopeful less, but obviously project costs are not there, or have been rising faster. But that's the money set aside. The first monies in 25, 26 is to do what we would call a basis of design, 30% design, do detailed design the next year, and then construction. We don't need it immediately, but there are some improvements needed to that long term. And that would relocate the site up the hill and eliminate some of the potential failure points that we have built into the existing site.
Nice.
So that's how we've placed it currently in the capital program. And it's our largest wastewater capital program, as council can see. So
Okay,
we had
thank
to be prudent of where it can be placed.
I just want to say that when we get to this size, we have to look at borrowing for this. I mean, $2.5 million is going to come straight out of the general fund because the sewer system does not and will not cover that kind of expenditure until after 2029. So, and that's it. Let's move on.
Okay. The other one that I thought council might want to, and I always want to talk to council about is the third project down, the retrofitting of existing neighborhoods. We thought we'd be done the master plan by now, and as part of the master plan, we did an evaluation of adding sewers to the Black Mountain area, and then also some other of the areas that actually have dry sewer areas. And we were asked a few years ago to build a project into the capital program, so there's funding set aside. As we wrap up the master plan, there are some opportunities to do that. We haven't really set how the program might work with this one. So knowing that we'll just be wrapping up the master plan when this money comes available, do we still keep it in the CIP? This was to allow us to work with property owners or just start extending sewers up so it's available. Even on Black Mountain, we still have issues where we have septic systems that are failing up there. And what actually happens is that because they're more than 300 feet from a proper existing sewer, we write them a letter and they get a new septic system built. So that's what it's set aside for. We haven't gone as far as having a discussion. We can maybe do that later with council to set the parameters on this program though. But I just want to
Look at Black Mountain, because if the septic system fails up there, then you're gonna get Maricopa County and probably the State Department of Environmental Quality on it. So we need to take a look at that, Sean.
We also heard from a resident this past council meeting about the concern up there. So good. It's good. I see you have $500,000 over the next 5 years targeted for these infill areas.
It's a tough geology up there.
Okay, we'll keep it in. Again, the master plan is actually looking at what a sewer system might look up there. A typical gravity sewer, it's going to be a hard dig. It's going to be steep sewers, but they've come up with what I think is a good design. As we wrap up the master plan, then we can look at how we can start extending it, the system. So I'll leave that in there. We have two other lists. There are other two lift stations. We have some work assigned to both of them. We have the Chipperosa lift station towards the bottom, $150,000. That's our smallest lift station, but it's actually the oldest. So we look to do a repair on that system. We're going to add a flow meter, but the wet well needs to be repaired. The pumps are in good shape, but we got to replace some piping issues and do some other upgrades to that site. And then we do have the list of force main for that. We're doing the next year. That's the oldest force main in town. The Chipperosa lift station, sorry, I jumped up a few lines. That'll happen in 25, 26. Is that we need to do an assessment on that lift force main. And then there is a section that crosses Andorra Hills Wash that we're concerned about. The line is exposed, it has not broken. It's out of the flow line properly, but we need to address that before something does happen. So we think we have a couple of years to get that done. So
let's move on. Does the council members have any other wastewater? Yes, Councilmember Oggerton.
Just a question, Sean. On this $100,000 for inspecting dry sewers, we've been doing this for so many years now, and the cost was required from the developer when this was first put in, the housing products over there. Can there be some type of commitment on when, or a schedule, or some type? I mean, why would we spend $100,000 if they're never going to be connected? And if they're going to be connected, can there be a proposed phased-in date for, if for no other reason, income projections for the fund? But
yeah.
And the last time I asked the question, I was told that the dry lines may no longer be workable to actually do their purpose. So it just seems like we kicking the ball down the road. Is there something we can do to commit to when they'll be connected, or if they're not going to be connected? But $100,000
yeah.
with no.
Yeah, so Mayor, Council Member, oh, sorry. Sorry, hard to delay here. Yeah, so we put the money in there because there are State of Troya neighborhoods, State of Troya 1 and 2, and then Canyon Ridge have sewers that were put in by the developers, were never connected. As part of the master plan, we looked at a routing alignment of what pipe sections, what gravity sewer sections are needed to bring those into the treatment plant. A few years ago, actually when I started with the town, there was a plan to do a lift station to lift this down to Carefree Highway. We don't think that's prudent. We think there's a gravity option, which I prefer not to have lift stations in the collection system. This would sort of lean into that. So the master plan gives us sort of a routing option. We push this out a little bit, partly for balanced budgeting, but we do believe that there might be some issues in those systems. So before, and you're not seeing it in the capital program right now, it'll come in next year when we have that fully scoped out from the master plan, is how to make those connections work. But we want to see what the assessment, we believe there's some ductile iron sections of sewer. That's what shows up on the plans. So that's something that we need to know about, and we've never looked at these. All the work that we've been doing on assessing the collection system has been on the active system. So this is setting aside a specific project to look at those 3 neighborhoods that constructed with dry sewers before we go and put a larger program in, which would be connecting all the pipes into the treatment plant. We thought it was prudent to do that. Well, staffing resources and balancing the budget, we thought we could wait another year to get that done.
Why wouldn't you do that sooner rather than later?
Partly just resources. It's going to take time to work with a consultant to do that. And then as we work together as a master plan is starting to develop the overall scope of how much, and it's not going to be inexpensive to connect those subdivisions. We also do want to have a conversation with council about that, because there is a question on if they developers come in, the property owners do connect, or are we trying to encourage them to connect, because they actually currently all have septic systems. We didn't build in those all connections being part of, say, capacity fees. So do we waive capacity fees or reduce capacity fees? There's some discussion work still to happen, but partly it was both balancing the budget and also just workload. We thought there's more important stuff for especially the next fiscal year for us to focus on, with things like the lift station repairs and other repairs that we know of that we have to get accomplished in the system.
I think it would be a good thing to have that discussion about the dry sewer lines sooner rather than later, because it seems to me that if people have septic systems, the best time to do it is those septic systems hit somewhere between 15 and 20 years. You're gonna have to replace them anyways. So we might want to figure out a way to do that.
So noted. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions on wastewater before we move on to Cave Creek Water Fund?
No, but Grady, can Sean hear us when we're trying to provide feedback?
I
Sean?
can, there's a bit of a delay.
There's a bit of a delay. I
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you
I
for,
apologize for that.
okay, so Sean, are you ready to move on to the Cave?
Yes, unless there's no other questions on wastewater.
So I believe this is the next page, correct?
Yeah.
Page 15.
Page 11 in our book, yes.
Brian.
So, is it, I can't see it, the slide, there we go, yeah. Public Works, no, it's gotta go back. So be Cave Creek Water will be next.
Yes.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, are there any questions?
I do have a question. Would this be where water banking is budgeted, or is that just in the general budget? Or are we?
Operating budget, I believe, but I'll let the utility director answer.
Yes, Mayor and Council. So it's in the operational budget in the individual lines for both Cave Creek Water and Desert Hills Water, where we have the cost of both the purchase and water banking is in those operational budgets. So we don't show it in the capital.
Once we get the Phoenix interconnect in, are you sure the $250,000 is gonna be enough to repair those cap lift stations or the cap booster stations?
The answer is we're developing those scopes with the master plan. We have some other improvements that we're thinking of doing. We want to have some money in there. One of the improvements that's being discussed, Mayor and Council, was putting in a cap 2 and cap 3 boosters will still remain in place in the vaults. And it would be prudent to have a bypass, which currently doesn't exist. So we're trying to scope what those would look like. So again, next year I'll update these. This money is set aside. Oh, sorry.
It's been running.
Yeah. This money is what we think is we need to do some work right now. We have some isolation valves inside the vaults that we're trying to work on. We have some other improvements to do. Once the interconnect's up, we can do some larger work, and we're trying to scope that out, what we
On
need.
how long have those boosters been running?
Well, the booster sites were constructed in 1990. The pumps, the last time all the pumps were changed out and major work was done that way is probably 10 to 15 years ago. So that's where we're looking at. We've been working on replacing the electrical drives at the sites. We've upgraded the PLC computers at the sites. We've replaced the radios. So the pumps themselves, we would want to work on starting to rotate them in and out. We actually we've been doing that more at Cap 1 because we have one spare pump for that site. The other 3 sites actually share their spare pumps. That's something we want to work on. But we also think it's prudent to work on things like the isolation valves inside of each one. We know we have a metering issue. It'll be partly addressed when with the Phoenix Interconnect, where we can get a new meter at the Cap 4 booster. The CAP wants us to have an upgraded meter closer to the cap canal itself. So there's a number of improvements. While it's $750,000, it looks like a lot. I think we might need a little bit more, but we're scoping all that out. That's what we're working on right now.
Okay.
Is that enough money in there for those booster station repairs?
We may be a little bit short, but until I think I'm comfortable, I'd like to wait through the master planning exercise and then get the better numbers together to present to you next year. We're doing some repairs right now. We plan to do some through next year also.
I have a point. Brian, for the purposes of the viewing public, these camera shots on the far right, can you just reduce it to Sean so we could see the total amounts? It's covering up, it's blocking the total amounts. Maybe you could move the screen over so we don't have to see the CC numbers somehow, so everybody could see the total amounts. Thank you.
How long is our delay with Sean? That might help us to understand how to communicate.
I don't know how long it is. It seems like we're trying to interrupt one another and
Yeah.
it doesn't work. It should be, in theory, it should only be a matter of a second or two,
In theory.
Right.
but I don't know if there's some cancellation going on
There you
between,
go.
like when you're speaking, that it's not getting over to him.
He's doing this through his computer. Could we get a phone line with him on his cell phone, and then you could, with you, and when we want to stop him, you could tell him.
That might be an idea. Yeah, Sean. So
Mhm.
what we're gonna do, so if there's questions as you're speaking, we're gonna try to text you. So pay attention to your cell phone
Okay.
and we will let you know that way that we either have a question or for you to stop so that you can get some clarification to the council.
Okay.
I think Teresa will do that, correct, Teresa? Okay. Okay, let's proceed. I apologize. This is not going as well as we had hoped.
You know,
But-
it's fine. We
yeah.
appreciate everything you're doing.
So, are there any other high level things that you think the council needs to be aware of? I mean, what I'm looking at, these are a lot of routine items that are in the Cave Creek water system. Council, do you have any questions of anything that's listed there?
My only question is, are the rates going to cover what you're going to spend next year, Sean?
Dramatic pause here. Yes, the capital program as presented right now is covered by the 2022 rate model that we did do. The one project that actually we because of the rising costs of the Phoenix Interconnect that we did push out of this year's capital 5-year capital program was actually there was an upgrade project to the water treatment plant to convert it to a Paul membrane only plant. So that project has been pushed out to give us the capacity for the interconnect. So it does fit the current rate model as it sits.
Thank you, Sean.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe we're on to the next one, which would be Desert Hills Water Fund, unless council has any other questions about the Cave Creek Water Fund.
Let's move.
I do have a question. What's the status of the wells in Cave Creek?
So we were talking with the vendor to get back in. So we do have the 6 well casings that we did video. Our next step is to get their revised proposals from we've been having some trouble with one of the one vendor that we had originally selected. So we were thinking of getting quotes from a second vendor to do the cleaning work on the casings and then do the subsequent pump testing. We're planning to, our goal is to get at least 2 to 3 done this current fiscal year.
Okay,
So that we can get better information about those wells. Okay, well, moving on to Desert Hills. Again, this is very similar to what we had last year. Our biggest thing is, we're still again focused on repair and maintenance. We have the one large project is the steel storage tanks. We have the 4 storage reservoirs out there. We've been delaying doing that, and I'm hoping to get a contract to council here shortly to start the design with construction occurring in next fall over the winter on the first of the 4 reservoir sites. The water meters are starting to age out there. The first water meters were actually put in, the Neptune meters were 12, 15 years ago. So we expect them to start failing. So we want to be proactive with that, and also allows us to look at starting the upgrade to Desert Hills to the AMI system, automatic meter infrastructure, which allows us to get better, actually real-time data on the system. The next biggest project we have is the middle of the page there, the wellhead arsenic treatment. That's a project that we're still sort of working on the full scope, but just to give council a background, when the town bought the water system, one of the 3 wells in Desert Hills had an issue with high arsenic. It was above the federal mandated levels. The solution at the time was actually to do what they call blending. So the well was designed such, and there were some pipes put in the ground that when the well was running, it was they were running water from Cave Creek, treated CAP water, Colorado River water, through the Desert Hill system up to this site. What it did is it avoided having to do a wellhead treatment, which actually did help.
Thanks, Sean. So we're going to go ahead and move on. If there's no other questions, we'll move on to public safety. We'll have the fire department. What page number will that be?
Bottom of page 12.
Page 12, okay. Are you ready? Mayor and council, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. With exceptions, does anyone in council have questions?
Yeah.
Of what they see in front of them? I do.
I've only got three primary things, so go ahead. Yes, Mayor.
$200,000 per year for person protective equipment, that's $12,000 per position roughly. What is costing?
That's we put money in the budget each year in case we have an event where we have to replace all the turnouts. For example, if we go on a fire and we have to replace all the turnouts of the people there at the station, or any equipment that we break. Like this last year, we assisted Daisy Mountain with replacing the pump because we haven't got our engine yet. But it's just a placeholder for us because the fire equipment is so costly. That's pretty much all you're going to have for capital once we get past the building of the station and the vehicles. Is you'll have just a placeholder in there each year for $200,000 for equipment.
can we change the name of it to be more accurate, personal and?
I agree. I think I didn't know that, and I think we should have, normally there's a line item for a, commodity or a contractual service type of thing. So we'll have something that's more appropriate, more descriptive.
Okay.
So it fits. So it doesn't look like we're buying turnout gear for everybody every year.
I just want to see Jim come in the turnout gear.
Yeah, you won't see that, sorry. The only question I had for the mayor and council real quick was we have the water tender in this year. It was originally in our contract for 23-24. We pushed it out a year. And if we have the funding in the budget for next year, then I can start looking to, I'd like to at least try to buy a good used one first and save the town some money before we purchase a new one. This is the cost of a new water tender that we have to supply. Right now, one of the reasons we pushed it out is because the station's not done. There's no reason to get one right now. We're still using one on loan from Daisy Mountain that we have. But that's the fire department will operate it, but we own it. If you remember our IGA, we own the station, we own all the equipment, we own all the vehicles. Currently, they're loaning us the engine because ours hasn't come in yet, and they're loaning us a water tender. But we're responsible by the agreement that we would buy those. So we just haven't done that yet.
How much is a water tender?
450,000 is in the budget for next year.
And this is simply a water truck that goes to haul extra water for when needed.
Right. This is for areas where we don't have hydrants and for when we need large incidents. It has to have some fire. This has to be a fire one. So the pump has to be at least 500 gallons a minute. We'd like to get at least 2,000 gallons a minute in a tank so that we can make a difference. But this is for the areas where we don't have hydrants.
And that's because the trucks no longer carry hard hoses to be able to pull from a pond or a pool or whatever.
You can't get to the pools anymore. Everything's fenced. You can't put a truck next to it.
That's why they have to have the pump on the tender. Okay.
We need the tenders, and this is our portion to the region. We will call in other tenders. We don't have just one. If we get a big fire incident or a big house, we will call in a bunch of them to do a shuttle is what it's called.
And how many water trucks does the town have? 2? Just 1?
Hal?
Could we outfit that pump on our water truck and share that with the fire department since we're all part of the same thing and actually achieve the same purpose?
My answer would be, that's kind of what's happened right now. We will use those water trucks in the event of a large wildland fire, but they are not sufficient and not rated for a fire service water tender use.
Because of the pump?
Mostly because of the pump. The pump has to be a minimum of 500 gallons a minute, yes.
We have one, in answer to your question, we have one water truck. We are in the capital, we're looking at replacing a 1999 water truck. And we have one that we were supposed to get rid of, a 98 water truck, which we haven't yet. It didn't go to auction yet, but it should go to auction.
Right, it just seemed like that might be a way to save some money there if we could figure it out and equip a 500 gallon a minute pump on the one. Could they carry what, 5,000 gallons? Is that
4,000.
4,000 gallons? So, that's all you're looking at. And
We have put the connectors on those trucks. So
I
that
know
we can get
I
that.
requested that years ago.
Yeah, we've done that, but technically they're not classified as fire apparatus. And that's where we get in trouble. We don't get the credits for it from
We don't get
ISO.
what?
Credit for it from ISO.
Okay, so
There's different equipment that we carry versus what.
so
Hal carries.
450 for an extra credit.
Before you leave, there's another water truck on there 2 years later in 28 for 200, and it's a 2019. Why are we replacing that?
Well, that was
How
put
many
on,
How many we have? We only have.
well, we have one that we bought 3 years ago. And the other ones, we have one that we were supposed to retire, I believe a 98 that we were supposed to retire when we bought that one. And we did not. We've retired it, it just needs to go to auction. But the 99, this year, the 99 is up for replacement.
That doesn't explain why we're buying one.
I-
In 2019 that we're supposed to get rid of. That's what we're.
I think
we have
because
two
we were
different
looking,
buckets.
because we were looking at the time of about an 8-year cycle. So the 3-year-old one would come up in 28, 29.
And you have 5 people, right?
We have, yes, 5.
6 people. And you
6.
got a road grader and you have 2 water trucks and we have backhoes and we have brush.
And yes,
I just want to say right now that I think there needs to be a check on our balance between what we contract and what we do ourselves, because everybody can drive every one of those vehicles and nobody ever hits the ground. So if we're not getting a utilization on them, I'm getting some. Yeah, your microphone. Oh. I was getting signals from back of the room. It just seems like we have too much equipment that's underutilized, and we really need to take a look at the workflow out there. And to see if we can contract some of that, so we're not carrying all this equipment that we're repairing all the time, evidently.
I will tell you that the water trucks get utilized, especially with our unpaved roads. They wet down the roads. They also are used, our blade is used for grading the shoulders, which we do at least twice a month to keep those in accurate condition. The water truck is used quite a bit throughout the water trucks are used quite a bit, and the backhoes are shared with the utilities department to do all the line repairs. So we don't have very many pieces of equipment that are not utilized.
I'm not, it's the percentage utilization time, these are economic projects. And for each one of these, when they come to council, I want to see what the payout is, the standard economic analysis to make a capital decision that's in every
Right.
finance and freshman economics book in the world.
Yeah, and we will certainly do that.
We understand where you're coming from, Mayor, and we will be working on that. The one thing I will tell you is, having worked in another smaller community, I actually had about the same size Public Works Department. And we actually had a lot of pressure to start contracting out some of the services. And so we would either contract out some of the services, or we would actually lease or rent some of the equipment. And we would find that during events, we weren't able to get the equipment when we needed it. And so, and while it may look like some efficiencies and some savings, but when it comes to throughput and actually efficiency on getting the work done when you want it done, they don't always match up.
Okay, well, we don't need to analyze it here.
No, I'm just
let's,
saying
uh,
it.
yeah.
It's,
All I'm saying
we'll do
is
that.
There needs to be an economic justification to what we do and a trade-off between contract and
Yeah.
in our forces.
Okay, so I'm not really sure we got the direction or consensus for this brush truck that he was talking, or water truck that he was talking about,
For the water tender. Yeah.
water tanker.
What I'd like to do is, if the money stays in there, then I will start looking for good used vehicle, which might cut that price in half, so we could save half of the money on that. Because there are some water tenders aren't used quite a bit in a lot of areas, and we might have the ability to find one of those. But I can't do that until we have the approval with the.
And I thought there was some expectation from Daisy Mountain. So what was that when we signed on with them
It's
about
in our,
this?
it was in our IGA for the town to buy the water tender in fiscal year 23-24. We pushed that out.
Okay,
And so we moved it out again to 24-25. And Daisy Mountain is, in all honesty, is a little concerned about the truck that they've given us. It's a reserve piece of apparatus. It sits behind the station. You can see it now. It's a reserve piece. And they're worried that it's going to be reliable.
That
Okay.
is or is not.
They're worried that it will not be reliable.
Yeah.
We're using it and have used it since we've opened up, but their question is how long that will last.
so I think we have a contractual obligation there. So,
We signed a piece of paper.
Right.
to do it.
Any other questions? Thank
okay.
you.
So development services?
Some improvements at town hall.
Before we do that, under the public services, the previous slide you had up, why are we buying 2 Chevy Tahoe trucks for the marshal?
His request was for one, today.
You got one in 25 and you got another one in 28.
I was supposed to delete the FY 28.
Okay,
We moved it up to FY 25.
all right, thank
My
you.
apologies. Thank you for saying this.
And I would like to just comment on that. I think we found a solution after this had already been published. So I found some savings, and the vehicle that Carrie previously was assigned as the previous town manager, we're going to go, this is a vehicle that was assigned to the part-time volunteer deputy marshal that we use. So in my mind, with the amount of hours that we use and all that, it would make sense. And then that vehicle temporarily used for the next year or two that is currently assigned to that deputy to be a pool vehicle that could be used for like local travel. So for all intents and purposes, we're going to remove that.
Okay, thank you.
So there's not gonna be either one.
I will just comment, we may have some additional costs that we will run the figures and have it in time for next week in terms of outfitting the current vehicle that we have. So there might be equipment that you're not able to necessarily take from the current vehicle and put on because of, trying to get it to fit and all that. So there will probably be some outfitting of this vehicle, but it will be a considerable savings versus what you see right now.
If I may, Councilmember Rhodes. Councilmember Rhodes, the error is on the slides on the PowerPoint, but it is correct in the book. It's only one request. My apologies. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh, thank you.
Adrian, what page is this going to be?
It's right above what we just wrote.
Well,
Well, yeah, right above with fire emergency.
Yeah, this is the Ernie Bud Memorial Skybox.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Dusty, you weren't supposed to tell them it's already been named. That's the surprise.
Mayor, members of council, so the Development Services has three different items in the CIP. One isn't set to be funded for several years. The two that would impact this year's fiscal budget are the Town Hall, Town Council Chambers redesign and space study. That was brought up during the strategic plan. It falls under the infrastructure. And item is the Town Hall, which is stated evaluate options for redesign, remodel of Town Hall. We've got $160,000 budgeted to do that. Give us a whole list of options, design options, alternatives, phasing plans, construction estimates, to where if council decided in future budgets, then we'd build into the CIP either doing it all at once or phasing it out, maybe starting with this building, moving over to Town Hall, different options. So all of that would be addressed in this upcoming fiscal year with a design professional and their team to do that. The other project is the Rodeo Skybox, and that's a list shown here as a public-private partnership. Whereas we've got 500,000 programmed in there. We've had a lot of talks with the rodeo committee. As you know, the former Crow's Nest succumbed to Mother Nature, wind and rain, and fell over a good 3 years ago. Since then, for the rodeo, they've been renting scaffolding and putting an announcer up in scaffolding. And this year, the rodeo committee had plans drawn to rebuild that area with a much more advanced and very nice skybox. The costs that I've seen associated with that are right in that range. Also of note, once that skybox is completed or Crow's Nest is rebuilt, the town would also receive approximately $85,000 from that insurance claim from the accident, from the skybox being taken out 3 years ago. This is also, we're looking at doing a separate agreement with the rodeo committee where they would pay us back this capital expended. So that's really why it's a true public-private partnership. Is the way this is set up. We're looking at expending the capital up front and then being repaid over a term from the rodeo group.
Mayor and council, if I may, I'll just jump in a little bit. I happened to speak with Mr. Poppenweimer yesterday to make sure I understood this. And so part of this would be they would pay 200,000 up front out of this. And then the town would pay the balance. And then over the next 5 years, it's anticipated to be paid off. So the risk here is that it's very little, and it's truly a public-private partnership where we would front probably close to 60% of the cost, and then the balance they're coming up with $200,000 immediately, and then it's our asset, and then they're going to totally pay for this. They will be reimbursing us for our cost. So over the next 5 years, but we're not going to just do a wink and a handshake. We'll have an agreement to that effect and how that will be structured. And there's a variety of different ways it could be done. It could be done with this agreement where they pay us, 1/5 of the cost or 20% of the cost over the next 5 years, or it could be, there can be some sort of a ticket surcharge for the events that are held out there. But either way, I feel that it's a very little risk. And then at the end, it is going to be our asset. no matter what. So it won't be theirs, it's ours because it's on that property that is currently under lease to us by Maricopa County.
Are we in the process of getting that from BLM or Maricopa County?
Mayor, members of council, Councilmember Rhodes, Maricopa County is actually spearheading that. They submitted their application to BLM in December. They're trying to get patent issued for approximately 220 acres, of which approximately 20 acres, then they would then transfer over to the town.
Once it becomes ours, can we do something more than just the rodeo and a few events? Can we try to at least make some money out of this?
So
You go out to Wickenburg and places like that, they have events at their rodeo grounds every weekend.
absolutely. I would suggest that we do some sort of an event venue evaluation and see what we can do and what the possibilities and what the market bears for that. I agree.
I think the rodeo committee, maybe ask them to change their name to Rodeo and Event Committee and let them start working events too. Well, you know what? We don't need to be doing it. They should be doing it for us. I mean, if they're getting the benefit of, a couple $1 million worth of infrastructure, they ought to be able to
They
come
built
back.
it.
Well, they did. I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
But they ought to be able to, figure out other events they can put out there.
there are events, there's a return shoot for roping events already installed. And now that we have the restrooms, it becomes much easier for other things. Now that we've got the restrooms, it becomes much easier to rent that thing on a weekly basis to different
Right.
clubs. We have the high school rodeo out there, I believe, and we do quite a few things. With the advent of adding the restrooms, it actually makes the thing viable where it never was until this year.
I agree.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is now that it's viable, let's start using it.
Yeah,
See
they
if we
come-
can get some money back from it.
I
Okay,
already
well, this-
suggested Taylor Swift.
Taylor Swift, oh my God.
This is, to me, this is a public park. We don't have a lot of parks. This is our Western heritage, and we do have events out there. And we need to get that organized to where we have a performance measurement on how many events or how much money to at least recover as much as the operating cost. But these facilities everywhere across the valley do not really ever pay off the bonding part of the capital improvements.
No,
And
I understand.
I'm-
I just
yeah.
want to make sure we can get something
got it.
out of it.
Let me finish my comment, please. And, there are a lot of ways to do that. We could lease it out to somebody, a promoter who could come in and put these things on. The rodeo committee's all volunteers, so they get awful burned out. That's the problem there. But the other one is to have the staff lease it out the way Payson does, the way Queen Creek does. A lot of towns do this. So now that we do that, and the things that are one time for the rodeo only, I really like this public-private partnership because they're paying for it. And it becomes ours, and there's the only big event we have out there. That doesn't mean there can't be other ones. And we sure ought to look at getting as much or minimizing the cost of what that thing costs us. So I agree with you, Dusty, with the objective. And it's an unused asset that needs to be, now that we have the restrooms, it needs to really be pushed forward.
yeah, Mayor, to that point, the other capital program in here for 2 or 3 years out is the Stockman's area. I'm sure you've all been to the Stockman's area. That is in dire need of a refresh. And actually, the rodeo committee about 3 years ago, COVID, had plans drawn to do a really nice structure with a kitchen, restrooms on the first level and second level, outdoor seating and everything else. So that would be another, this is kind of the litmus test for how this public-private partnership may work, but that may be another one to really get that event space used. I mean, a perfect example, we've got someone leasing it in November for a wedding. So I mean, it's not just equestrian users out there. There's a whole litany of potential viable candidates to use that space. So,
Okay,
thank you.
anything else on the rodeo?
Not on radio. Can I address another issue or?
About, with,
Well, on development, yeah.
oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Since this is kind of like the first place where ideas compete for potential funding and so forth going forward, I want to just raise a trial balloon with you guys and see what you think. if you want to characterize the commercial district of Old Town or the historic corridor, whatever you want to consider it, could we get a category for capital improvement to be reviewed on an annual basis for the historic area? Now, we've done pieces of sidewalks and trails and curbing and this, that, and the other. And I'm not suggesting a study. We've had more studies in Ernie's lifetime and mine than probably most other things in town. But if this is a priority, if the commercial district is in fact the financial engine, although we have Walmart and other stuff, why don't we have an annual discussion about what we're going to commit to for the downtown commercial corridor for appearance, aesthetics, practicalities like parking and restrooms and things like that? I bugged the mayor the other evening before the meeting to ask him if he had a third party that could ask about the sales price of the TC Thorntonson property, the 9 acres that's out there listed. If we're serious about being a destination community with our historic Old Town, even though it's eclectic and I get all that, but I wish we could consider making this an annual ask. Even if it begins the first cycle with a culminating study of all the studies we've done so far and whatever work the Planning and Zoning Commission did. I'm not suggesting funding this coming year, but the medians, and I don't want to get into that issue, and I see we've got some things in the budget here as well, but it would be nice to have a roadmap of what we're going to do in time sequence that we can hold the calendar to. I just think this is a big priority. Everybody else has gotten their day in the sun, preservation and trails and the rodeo and so forth, all of which are part of the fabric of the community. But the downtown corridor, it just needs to have an annual discussion. And maybe it's very little bit of funding in the coming year or 2 years or whatever, but at some point, we should have dreams and plans for where we want to be 5 or 10 years down the road. I just think we can do better. I don't have a specific suggestion. I'm trying to be patient. I sat here for a couple of years and let things take higher priority. But we're not just wastewater and drinking water and pipes in between back and forth. Lifestyle begins with the coming into the community and the entrance and so forth. And I'm not saying there's not enough funding, but as we replace the sign out there done by the Boy Scouts, this, that, and the other, why don't we formalize an annual set of discussions for potential funding and achievement? I mean, we can start with basics. The parking, we can do better. Lighting, so I mean, you're going to be doing 3 crosswalks. I mean, I think a lot of this is already underway, but we might be missing an opportunity to coordinate how much funding we're spending in the commercial corridor. So that's my only real plug, is I'd like to have it considered.
I agree with you. And one thing that I'd like to put on this year is a budget item for a property purchase down there.
Okay, we will definitely do that. And
You'll have to figure out what that might be. But I'd like to get the sense of the council on this. In my opinion, we've got a ton of money sitting there that we can use for something that is capital related at one time. We don't want to spend operating funds on it, but I'd like to see us and paving is a project that needs to perhaps be speeded up and taking money. That's worthwhile. But another one is if we can add to a capital and buy land like we did down that where the interconnect's going in for a in the town core, and the property's just about disappeared. We may not have another opportunity. We may not spend it this year.
right.
Because that's not the authority to spend. It's just put it in there and we get in trouble for these high budgets. But 25% of that is money that we just have in there in case something happens. And that's what I'm looking at here is some in case money to purchase property.
These are great discussions, and this is a good time to do it. So we will definitely go ahead and make some adjustments based on what we're hearing. The other thing I also want to let Councilmember Augerton know as well is that council will be seeing in a very near future the Planning and Zoning has done a refresh update to the core area plan. And there are some things in there that kind of fit in with what you're talking about, Councilmember Augerton, as far as kind of more visionary, kind of big plan ideas. And I do like that. And I think perhaps what we can do is for our next retreat, actually spend some time kind of strategizing what is it that we want the core area to be? What are some of the thematic kind of stuff that we can incorporate, and let's try to put together a plan that over time we can, work on. So I think you're right on, and some of it might be some design kind of elements, and other things could be infrastructure that all fit in with that. So we're hearing you loud and clear, and we'll go ahead and make adjustments to the budget. And also, I think when we have that core area plan come back to council, and I think it's going to be probably another 6 weeks or so is when it'll come back. That's a perfect time to look at it at that time. Thank you.
If I may, I just received some information that Rebel Ranch is for sale for $6,020,000. Which, isn't terrible.
I actually heard 9 million.
Well, a realtor just notified me $6,020,000.
It depends on what day you ask TC.
Yeah.
TC's not the
That's not the
owner.
owner anymore.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. I'm sorry. I'm 2 years behind.
Yes, you
I,
are.
I believe they
The
purchased it
current
for that
owner
price.
Purchased it for
That
$6
was-
million.
Yeah.
Yeah. and
So these
the
are,
owner-
these are all really good discussion items, but we have to be really careful when there might be some potential real estate purchases that we're not having those kind of conversations in an open forum.
Talking about the list price.
But I want to jump in just here, one little piece.
Turn your mic on.
It's chronic. And that is that Tom's comments are really important to hear. Because it turns out that when we look at our general plan, the people said, we want a small town feel, we want to have this certain character, and we really love that, and we're going to defend that. And we've taken some steps to actually do that, but there's more to it. And that is, for example, tourism. What's our tourism plan? We have a great group of volunteers, but I don't know how they fit in the strategic plan, or how they're funded, or their work. What kind of money goes in there? So that's one piece. We've talked about trails, and the trail pieces are still a little bit not all connected. And so I just want to, I guess, contribute this voice to say it needs to happen, because other things are happening, and we can notice that will change the character of our town. And it's inevitable, but we need to manage that in really strong ways. So there you go, my energy. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Finance Director,
Next, I have the fleet list of vehicles and equipments for the next 5 years.
I think they talked about them, correct? Council,
Sure.
Mayor,
Yeah.
we've talked about the vehicle, the
Just
fleet already,
consolidated
right?
list, okay.
So I think the one thing is, we didn't get into, and that would be, Teresa can talk about the copiers. So just to let you know, it's small, but not a, yeah, sure. Why don't you sit next to me? So it's a significant dollar amount from an administrative standpoint, but, something that we have in the budget is photocopiers, and it's under her area, so I'd let her talk.
Sure. So we have some machines that we use as our power horses to print out agenda packets, pretty much anything that we need copies of and it's for the entire town. So we have one that is used for administration. The repair costs for these, after a while using them a lot, start adding up. So we do have a replacement plan, and that's what these are on the CIP list for. So basically what we do is we take the oldest and retire it. And then the new one comes in, and that is our main copier for the town hall, and we rotate them down. So we have it budgeted out for the next 3 years to get them all rotated out. We also will be looking at not just ownership, but the lease options to see if that would be a better deal. So, but this is the approximate cost for the copy machines at this point.
So the reason I wanted to bring that up is leasing is something that I've worked in the past on photocopiers, and it's probably the best deal, because you're always going to have the latest, newest copier. But we would like to have the placeholder here. And if we do find that leasing is the better deal, a lot of times it's a wrap deal, meaning it's your, you know, your toner, your maintenance, your cost per copy, all that's wrapped into a cost per page. And it ends up being a much better deal than if you buy outright and you have the maintenance contract and all that. So we'll be updating you, but I wanted to make sure that you were aware of this. And this is very important because we have the copiers are actually aging. So
You may sometimes notice with the quality of prints and the red lines that happens after a while.
we're coming to the end of our workshop, but we also, before we get into next steps, are there any items related to capital that you're surprised wasn't in, or that you would like to see in, or like to have a discussion about? If not, you think about it. I mean, you still have an opportunity next week during the last session that we have. We'll have questions. If there's something you missed or didn't think about until now, you can do that next week as well.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Dustin.
I agree with the mayor. When we get into the water sewer kinds of projects, some of those, you know, quickly add up to a lot of money. If we can bond those, that's probably a better option for the town.
Right. Bonding or financing, right? Debt financing, correct.
Yeah, I mean, coughing out, you know, we know that we're going to have to replace some of those pumps
Right.
When we do the capstone. That's a lot of money.
So that was my reaction when I saw, you know, what we've done in the past. We've done a lot of pay-as-you-go with cash, and it made sense at the time perhaps, but it does have a huge impact on rates.
Right.
And so we want to keep the rates as stable as possible.
So things like lift stations, things like the replacing the cap booster pumps, all these other things that we're doing, I think it's just smart to bond those. And I think the mayor's right on track on that.
I agree, and that it's equitable too, because the people, I mean, I'm not gonna get any credit. I'm not gonna use it now, but there's people the next 20 years that'll use it, and they will pay their share
Right.
of the use of that lift station or what it is. So there's an equity argument as well as just managing your finances.
Good point. Not just the people that are here today investing for the future people, but people in the future paying their fair share.
We're going to 6.
No,
No, we're almost done.
So let's, and you've got it up here, the next steps. I didn't get my question answered whether we can afford this. Or if we can't afford it, how much we're pulling down from our reserves. So is that going to be the next session?
Yes.
So we're going to get into that next week, but certainly we believe what you have in front of you is a balanced budget. So, and I understand what you're saying, how much of this possibly is being paid for with, you know, beginning balance of, you know, the reserves or fund balance.
So the general fund balance is going to be the same next year? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm going to turn it over to the finance director to answer the question.
I'll be able to give you an overview next week.
Okay, yeah,
at the
that's
next
right. I just wanted to
sessions
know when to
about the
expect it.
fund balances for all funds across the board.
And the one area of concern I have is that every dollar we spend in the wastewater system comes out of the general fund, because they are, I think I once calculated that to break even, we need to charge $250 per account. And we're only charging 80 or 90. So that's all going to that money there. So anything that we can move to the time period when the bonds are paid off, which I believe is not 2029, is a good thing,
Right.
because we'll have more money then than we have now.
So what you'll see next week is you'll see the big picture. You'll see the 5-year forecast. You'll also see the entire budget. So next year, we're only going to go over, next week, we're only going to go over the operating budget, but you'll see, you know, the subtotals plus the capital and how that fits in and how it's being funded. So that's what you'll get, and you'll get the big picture. And again, we're trying to get everything all wrapped up in time, but we will be there and ready on Monday for this.
Absolutely.
Let me just-
I have one comment before we're done here, and that is, I really want to thank you and the staff for, as you dig into the back of the packet, then the connections that you're making between our general plan, our strategic plan, and the way we spend money is awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it was the direction from the council for us to do that. So that's why it's there.
Did you want to say anything?
I just wanted to announce, unfortunately, I will not be present next week because I had planned a trip a year ago. And we had planned the meetings earlier in the year that I wouldn't have to miss them, but because of circumstances beyond our control, that all changed. So I'm going to get a personal education from one of the staffers regarding the budget and the overall scope of all of our projects. So I'll do that aside from our public meetings.
And I wanted to compliment staff too. We had a number of curves this year. Remember when Bridget ported the entire system, and I did that professionally once, and it is not all that easy. So we're on a new budget system. We lost the finance director and we had Elias come in at the last minute. And so those are things that really add to the stress. And I think that the work I've seen so far and the department heads and their work on this, I'd like to compliment all the staff on the fine work we see here. And I look forward to seeing the rest of it as we go
Great.
through this.
Thank you, Mayor. And if there's no
Thank
other
you.
questions, we'll see you
If I may-
next week. Oh, yes.
One quick comment to mayor and council. Again, I want to apologize for the confusion at the start of this work session. I don't know how much longer I can get away with saying I'm new here. But I thought the technology works such as if I have it on the screen, it's on your screen. So I started there and I'm going on and thinking that this is what you're saying. My bad. I didn't know that your view there is independent of what's on the screen.
Elias, we're just glad you're here. And after the meeting,
Yes.
I'll tell you my joke about make 3 letters.
Thank
Okay,
you.
meeting
All right,
adjourned. Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.